Okay. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon and evening, depending on where you're joining from. So I'd just like to welcome all of us to Teaching Moment this morning, and we have a really important topic today. uh, I'm just going to read because the topic itself is it's quite long, so I'm just going to read it out first. So it's the spirit of finance, bringing order into everyday money. And when I saw the topic, the part that jumped at me is that everyday money part. So I'm really looking forward to today's session. And we have Chrissy with us to take us through this session. So welcome, Chrissy. And we're just going to I'll say an opening prayer and just turn this over to you. So Lord,
Good talk.
we're grateful. We're just grateful for an opportunity to share, because in reality, the wisdom that we all need, you've put it in someone's heart and in someone's mouth, and we believe with all of our heart that today we would receive wisdom, and this wisdom will be valuable for us, for not just for today, but for generations to come. In Jesus'
Where
name.
is it Ahmed? Oh, I saw you the last time when I.
So I muted Adenike. So Chrissy, over to you. You're muted though.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Samira. I'm so excited to be here, frankly. Okay, so you just made me swing my hair. Thank you so much for being here. It's a privilege, really, and an honor to be here this morning. I totally appreciate the teaching moment team for just finding me worthy to be here to chat with everyone about the spirit of finance, which is something that the Lord has been dealing with me for a bit, and apparently for a little bit more even in my life. I think that um, just closer to when I was to take this session was when it occurred to me just how long that Lord had been talking to me about this. So um, we're going to just jump right into it because we have a couple of things to kind of walk through. Um, and I have a couple of things to work through, and I just want to like get into the scheme, into the rhythm of things. All right. I'll be sharing my screen. Let me know when you can see my screen. Uh, okay, right here. All right. Um, can you see my screen? Can
Yes, we
everyone see
can.
my?
Yes, we can see your screen. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is the spirit of finance, and the idea of the spirit of finance. I know that when people hear it, it's like, oh, is there a spirit in finance? What does that even mean? I'm going to dwell on it. Every profession, every phase of life. But I started looking at this first from the profession aspect. Then I realized that it's not just even in the profession, even in the practice of it, in like everyday practice, it is a thing. So healthcare, even that one has health care already like right in front of it. You see what I'm saying? So when you think about health, when you think about medical doctors, the best medical doctors that you have interacted with, take a moment to think back to it. The best medical doctors that you have interacted with is the one that has shown you the most care. It could be this, it could be the simple, I'm so sorry, the empathy in their eyes, the way they, lightly touch you and, try to be like, soothe you, it's the little things. And I don't know if you guys are fans of like medical series. I am a huge fan, and Grey's Anatomy is one of the ones that took hours of my life in a certain year, but thank God for delivering me from it. And the people, the fans of the show would always compare people like Christina with Meredith. Okay. And there was one thing that differentiated between both of them. It was that Meredith had the element of care. Christina on the other hand was supposed to be the robot. Do you know? So she would come and do the surgery with precision, without blinking. She probably stand for 18 hours and 15 hours and get it done. But when it's time to relay the situation to the patient and all of that, everything that she's done in the OR just goes down south. Why? Because somehow I feel like um Christina hasn't or did not master that art of care, which is the spirit of the vocation. If I feel like if anyone does not figure out the spirit of any vocation, you are never going to be able to do that vocation right. It's the same case with the spirit of finance. And the spirit of finance, as it is stewardship. You know, it is care, it is diligence, it is trust, all, kind of wrapped together in one. And is called stewardship. And when we think about stewardship, you think that, oh, stewardship is, I don't know, I feel like the only settings I've ever heard stewardship is well, not never heard, but the only settings that's really like gone deep into what stewardship is religious settings or spiritual settings. And that's not because it is somewhat different from the secular world. Perhaps it is. But I guess when it comes to finance, the Lord was teaching me that it goes deep. It's not intangible. It can actually be pulled down into everyday elements. And that's what we're going to do today. I'm not going to define what stewardship is to everybody because we all know. And if for any reason it's like not clear, it is care, trust, low integrity, and diligence all wrapped into one. That's what it is, okay? So, what we're going to do today really is all of those elements. What does that mean in my everyday Abi? If you're telling me integrity, what does that mean in my own finance, in my business? Because we're touching those two aspects. I figure that when we speak about finance, it's either personal or business. Okay, business is more my jam, everyday jam. Personal, I'm going to be sharing from my own personal experience and perhaps some of my friends as well. Okay, but before we start, I want us to do an activity. Okay. And that's what is on the screen. So what was your first ever conscious money lesson? And I say conscious in bracket because I feel like whether we like it or not, the moment we could say our names, walk around the apartment or walk around the house, you know, interact with our environment, there were unconscious seeds of relationship with money that were already dropped in our spirit that we're relating with that we don't know. It could be in the way that our parents react to money, talk about money, people around us, the way that they sigh or not sigh, the way that they I'll tell you a personal story, for instance, like whenever we didn't have money, my mother or my father didn't have money, I knew, I just knew because I think I was a very sensitive child. And because I don't know how you people grew up, but in my own house, when I was growing up, when my mother didn't have money or my father, they will scream at us more in those periods, and that's how I knew that they don't have money. Something, or maybe we're going to school. I'm going back to boarding school or something. But they will come back late. My mother's eyes, there's a way it is. It will be lopsided like this. I need to be strong. I know that is money. Those things, as subtle as they were, as I realized later in life, that they were informing the way that I interacted with money. They informed the way that I thought about money. They informed the way that I just, you know, think about money, I guess. Anyway, having said that context, so let's talk about what was your first conscious money lesson? When was the first time that someone actually sat you down and taught you about money in a way that you kind of understood? Um, Let me see the best way to coordinate this. I think let's use the charts. Okay. Samira said, my first conscious money lesson was from my baba that no one is too young to work for money. Oh, perfect. I love that for you. Hmm. I know where my own first money came from. Does someone else want to share their first money lessons? While we're typing, I'm going to share mine. My first money lesson came from my grandpa. My grandpa, I was what, 15 or 15 at the time. I just got into the university and he took a liking to me because according to him I was smart, and then he just wanted everything to be as smooth as possible for me. And I was living in his house when I was going to school. So it would call me every beginning of every semester or every term semester, and then it'd be like he didn't. My grandpa was not a fan. Anybody who has interacted with me very well would have heard me talk about my grandpa a lot because it was a huge part of many things in my life. To be honest, he taught me so many things. Many things from how to relate with men to money to like my first lessons of life. He was the one who taught me. So my grandpa will say, okay, he would sit down with me and said he wasn't a fan of me cooking in the university. He thought it was a waste of my time. So he never really encouraged it. My grandpa would go ahead and say, let's plan it. How much do you need for food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? And then I don't remember. Let's assume it was like 100 naira or 150. I don't remember how much it was. And then that would be like 450 naira per day. Yeah. My grandpa would then go ahead and say, okay, it's 450 naira per day, but I'm not going to give you 450 for a day. I'll give you 400. Or it would say, I'll give you 380 or something like that. And when I ask him why he would want me to suffer like that, it says because you have to learn that sometimes the money you don't have enough money, and when you don't have enough money, how do you manage it? How do you budget for you? How do you just make sure that it is enough for you? Um, I would be angry, frankly, but every semester until I graduated, he did that, and he would repeat the same lesson all the time. It was kind of like advanced as it went, but I always came back during the semester to take my money because I was my grandpa's daughter. Like I was grandpa's granddaughter. You cannot play with me, right? You just so I'll find a way to come back during the semester and just lobbying, just like grandpa. Somebody sat on my finger. Just make some. I would make stories up. It would give me money all the time. Honestly, um, they said that I had him wrapped around my fingers. I don't believe so, but I tried know that he gave me money, and that was all. That was my first money lesson. He taught me how to give. He taught me to invest in stocks in Nigeria at the time. His wealth came from investing in stocks actually. So every year, every time there was like annual reports that would be like in his library. He was just always studying them. When I graduated and started working in Lagos, my grandpa calls me every month and be like, he wouldn't call me Chrissy. He calls me by my middle name. It's like, have you invested in stocks this month? This is what my own stocks. So he really, you know, he he tried with that aspect of my life. And even if I had unconsciously picked up a few things in my own home, he was the one that deliberately taught me the things I needed to know about money. And I'll tell you in the course of this conversation just how that has influenced me, how it clashed with what I learned in my original house and how I had to like bounce back from that. But let me read the comments we have here. For those that are just joining, welcome. We are talking about who taught us our first conscious money lesson. And the reason we put conscious here is because conscious as we grow up, whether as we turn like 2, 3, we're picking up things from the house. We're picking up the way that our members of the family react and talk about money, the way that they think about money. So whether or not we know, we're picking up some things. So hence the reason why we're putting emphasis on conscious. So if you have a story, like my grandpa's story or not, please feel free to share. And this is very special to me because about this time in 2022, my grandpa actually died, and I couldn't see him because I was all the way in the US. I couldn't see him before he died. And that was in November as well. So this is actually a huge remembrance. Anyway, Ayakula said, my first money lesson came from senior in boarding school. I was 9. Ayakula, you started early. You stole my pocket money because my parents kept the money with him. I learned if it's your money, you have to take. Oh, that's such a good lesson. Priscilla said, mine was my grandma or my mom, I think, saving. They got me and my siblings. Listen, that colo, that one is so real because on Christmas Day, well, on Christmas Day, we used to go around because my father was in the force. So we used to go around the barracks, and then this policeman used to give us a lot of money, and then we keep it in the colo. That's so true. And we used to save and break it and to take the money out. Yeah, that's so good. Love it. Everybody has different money stories. I guess what I'm trying to reach with this is that our relationship with money didn't come from a vacuum. It didn't just appear. Circumstances and things in life have shaped them. So many things. It started from when you didn't even know it was starting, when you were young, and then as you grow up, as you take risks, things start to form. Okay. Dara said my first real money experience was from high school as well, learning how to keep my money in the bank with the teller and only withdrawing what I needed. Mom and dad would credit my school account with fixed amount and would always rack my head trying to figure out that amount to sustain me. I'm telling you. Yeah, Janet said my friend go to school when we were 10. I would sign every time we put in money. Esther said my first money came from dad. He thought me money had to be earned, so he started giving me 2,000 for Esther. At the end of the term, he did that from message 1 to 3. Esther, please, how much did you now take? It was a healthy competition. So you see how I can imagine. I would be curious to know how your relationship with money is now, Janet. For someone who had a healthy environment to have like a healthy competition to outsave. I wonder if you're a huge saver, but we're going to figure out where we belong, you know. And I'm intentionally bringing up the psychological part of money first before we get into those practicals because, guys, money. Okay, let me see. Yeah. Okay. This is where I was going. We'll come back to that because money is never just about money, right? It's not just like it's not some, you know how people come on the internet and say just save, just budget. It's not hard to budget, is it hard? It's not to put Excel, somebody even give you templates, put one money there. But why is it that month in, month out, year in, year out, it still looks like some things are not driving, the money is not money, you know, the thing is not moving, the investments are not investing, what's going on? um because money is not about money. It's not just about money. There's a lot to it. It is more emotional than people like for it to be. Okay. It is wrapped, like I said on the screen, if you can see my screen, that it is in our deepest fears, it is in our highest hopes, it is in your earliest memories, which is what I was trying to kind of get us to remember. It is in your core identity. And I think that's the core of this message. It is that it's the way you relate with money, how you spend money, how you save it, whatever it is, wherever you are with money today, is at the core of your identity. And if you don't start to figure out what that identity is to start with, to change that identity, if it's not something that you want, to start to work around it, to start to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are when it comes to money, it will continue to be a struggle. And that's not a curse. That's not a, how do I say it now? That's not me being negative. That's me saying that this is not something that cannot be done, but it can be done only and when you first determine that you want to do it. Secondly, get truthful with yourself about what the problem is, about what the strength is, about, you know, because you can, it's not that you don't have access to information. Yes, there is a place for knowledge, there's a place for expertise, but like anything that you are an expert in today, because I think my internet just, can you give me a sign if you can hear me?
You're
Is
above, we
that
can hear you.
okay? Great. I was saying that all this movement and the reasons why we're not sure and all these things is more emotional, is more spiritual, because it's not the spirituality that comes with the village people. It is more in line with who we believe we are than we like to admit. The rubrics, the templates don't have the pure magic to get it done. Okay. So I'm going to be walking us through these archetypes. Can everyone still hear me? Um, I think because I can only see myself. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
yes, we can hear you.
If for any reason you cannot hear me, please can you just let me know so that I don't keep talking and I know where to stop or where to start from.
Okay.
If you're just joining us, thank you and welcome. What we're trying to do, we've worked a little bit further and we're trying to speak to what your money archetypes are, or what I call your financial archetype. And I did this by myself. This is my proprietary work, and that's because if you know me, you know that I'm a huge fan of psychology, and that's because I think that everybody should understand and should know psychology. It drives everything, is the core of everything, is the reason why certain people lead the way they are, is the reason why certain economies are working in a certain way. When you look at them, you look at their leaders, it's intricate, it's deep. And if everyone understands the psychology of themselves, it becomes easier to lead self. And if you can lead self, your life will start to yield the kind of result that you want. It can lead other people. It goes that way. You know what I mean? So I'm excited to like share this with you guys. The first one is the seeker. We're gonna do better with these emoticons or avatars, but for now this is what I have. The first one is the seeker, and I want you to find yourself. Me, I already know my own self. I know where I am. I know what my problem is. I know exactly what my strengths are, because that's the starting point. If we do not identify self, then we don't even know what we want. If we do not identify self, identify what we want, we don't know how to move from who we are today to who we want to become tomorrow. Do you see what I mean? So the first one is the seeker, and please take note because we're going to. Everybody has to find out who they are, because who you become is dependent on who you are today. Okay, so the strategies that I think would work for you is dependent on what your core emotion, the emotional or your belief, your behavior, all those things are. Do you see what I mean? Okay, so this is the seeker. um, the core emotion here is a lot of hope and confusion. I'm going to run through this so that we don't take a lot of time, but at the same time, I want you guys to also get it. So, emotional roots, and the emotional root here is the longing for direction. As the name says, they're seeking direction and validation so that they can get it right. There's a bit of perfectionism here as well. They believe that money holds the keys to their future, but they don't know which door to open, right? The behavior you see with these kind of people, they are the ones that they have like a million Coursera courses on financial habits and saving and all those things. They're constantly learning, watching financial. Their YouTube probably has a lot of that, but they rarely finish any of those. Not just the budgeting tools. It's that once somebody said this is this, they're just seeking because they really are seeking knowledge. They want that knowledge. There's a need for clarity, a sense of direction. That's something that would help them. That's the nature that they have. People like this usually need someone that has done something similar to what they want to do, and the person will say, "This is where you should go. This is the course that you should take," because then it keeps their focus square, right? The blind spot here is paralysis by or analysis by paralysis by analysis. Actually, a lot of analysis. There's too much information. See all the books in their hands, they're analyzing everything. The second one is a protector. Here, there is a lot of fear and a sense of responsibility. The emotional root is deep seated fear of loss or instability, often formed from early scarcity or financial trauma. You see where the way that we learned about money starts to creep into who we become, whether or not we accept it or not. It's just what happens, yeah? So the belief here is that if I don't save, everything could fall apart. So this one can save. These are the ones that be like, I prefer to see my money. These are my money mutual fund, mutual, what's it called? Money mutual fund people, just almost zero to almost zero kind of like risk taking is not an ideal thing. And not because, now let's be a reminder that there's nothing money market fund. Thank you, see. um risk taking to them is like a lot. So it's almost like the kind of risk they want to take is the one that, let me see my money in my bank account and my savings like this. Let us be seeing ourselves. Let me be opening my bank account in the morning, every morning, and be seeing it, so that all is well with the world that way. The need is that they need reassurance that safety can coexist with growth. That is the need of these people. And the blind spot here is that anxiety is disguised as prudence. So it sounds like smart, being money smart, but like it's a lot of anxiety on there. Um, let's move on to the visionary. The core emotion here is excitement and faith. These ones are like after the order of Abraham. They have faith to move mountains. They have faith to carry their Isaac as in their money, and go and slaughter it on the altar of, whatever, because excitement is the desire to prove that abundance and creativity can coexist. They're also usually very creative people with a lot of ideas, and that money is a proof of possibility. You see all the words? The belief here is that money is energy and I can always create more. I have faith as long as it's moving. They're usually bold investors, serial entrepreneurs, generous givers, occasionally reckless. Um, these ones need grounding systems that match ambition, overconfidence, and burnout cycles is their blind spot. People who have seen themselves, may have seen my own. Well, I already know it before, but in these first three, I've already seen my own. Who has seen themselves? Please, can I see your hand up? Anybody? Joanne has seen herself. Love it. Okay, cool. I hope my it is my hope that people can kind of like start to Samira to can start. We're still looking. That's fine. We're still at number three. We have about 6 months to go. There's about nine of them actually. And then you have the healer. The healer has a lot of compassion and guilt. Emotional root here is that a subconscious association with wealth and moral worth. So they fear that having more makes one less good. I just want to say that I was a healer at some point in my life, where I genuinely believe that having money will make me lose the kingdom of heaven. Like, God, I don't know who taught me that kind of evil thing. One can be multiple, but usually there's a primary one, John. There's usually a primary one. And if I have more, the belief is that if I have more, others have less. So it's as if it's a zero sum game. To have more is for others to have less. And since there's a lot of compassion and do good kind of thing, they don't want to have so much. So they give a lot and then they struggle to these ones. They will struggle if they are business owners. I feel like there's a battle. I feel like most creatives are healers. I'm sorry for throwing that bomb because I'm currently doing a series for creatives and finance, and the dissonance is mind blowing. Anyway, I think many creatives are healers because to charge is a problem. Charge your worth. Mba, how much do you want to charge? It's as if to charge their own work is to take from their soul. Okay, so they need permission to hold abundance without shame. And this is such a powerful one. Like I said, I was once the healer, and I think it took me a period of like 2 to 3 years, maybe 2 years more. I remember it was about during my NYC to actually like, God, I can have money. I can actually hold a lot of money, and there's nothing wrong with it. If I have money in my bank account, I don't have to feel the need to give it out just because it feels like it's too much in my account. um you know and then the blind spot here is self-sabotage of through overgiving. Yeah, let's keep going. um and then you have the architect. These ones have a lot of control and pride, a need for predictability as a way to manage internal or past chaos, not as a way to manage money. Pay attention to the emotional rate as a way to manage internal or past chaos, right? They are very precise. These are the analysts of the world. Uh, Money is order. There has to be an order. So if I design it right, I'm safe. Otherwise, I'm not safe. I just want us to pay attention to the spirit of the language, because it's not that you should not analyze. It's not that you should not be precise. It's not that you should. It is the emotion that it evokes when you're not? What happens? The lack of safety that comes with it. Yeah. So the behavior is the obsessed with spreadsheets, as in forecast and structure. They see money as logic, not emotion. Not because it's bad, but the problem is the lack of, not the thing about not feeling safe that comes with when they don't have like all those things. Yeah. And then the need here is emotional safety beyond the spreadsheet. Beyond the spreadsheet, blind spot is inflexibility and loss of joy. You see that? Loss of joy is not in the attributes that God said we should have. And that's how you start to know that something, there's more here, something is mixing here. Like something is mixing with this whole thing. This is beyond just money. There's more underneath. And that's why we're uncovering it. Then you have the escapist. This one's, it is shame and avoidance. Okay. Um, they are ashamed that they have not really figured it out, and so they avoid it. All right. The emotional root here is a history of feeling inadequate or judged around money, leading to emotional numbing. Maybe in the past they used to shop a lot. In the past they used to like do, just not think before they do stuff, and so there's been some history of shaming around that, and so they feel inadequate, and as a result they just completely avoid it. And the belief here is that money is overwhelming. So I'd rather not think about it. They ignore bills, they overspend, they use "I deserve it" logic, YOLO, you only live once. I can't come and kill myself. I can, these feel good phrases. Don't make a mistake. Not that we don't use it sometimes as well, but like these ones is usually just is easy. Every now and then, that's the word. You only live once. Tomorrow is not assured. Tomorrow is not, things like that. Tomorrow is not assured. When they don't feel good, when they just feel like the world is crumbling. Oh, yeah, shopping, yeah, you know, the next available mall. Um, and they usually would be late on bills, kind of, because to see that bill is to deal with their bank account as well, and it takes money from them. So those are the things. The blind spot here is the self deception disguised as self care. Is deception. It's really not care. All right. The need is to gently re-enter into the financial awareness space without judgment, to to have a community of people that can kind of nudge them and say it's okay. It's a step by step process. Don't overthink it. Don't, things like that. And perhaps friends and family members. Usually the shame comes from friends and family members. That's why they avoid. Um, but if they can have people that can like turn that around, that works. Let's jump to 7 and 8 real quick. 7 is the alchemist. The alchemist is curious and wants to be empowered. They're fascinated with self transformation, turning limitation into liberation. The idea that I can make wine out of water, I can, um, make pancakes from baking powder and flour or something. The fact that they can just mix chemicals together and make something. You see how colorful he is. He's very learned. He's very, you see all the tools at their disposal. They just have a lot of things that they feel like they can put together and make sense of. They feel like they can transform everything, which is a beautiful, positive thing. Um, they tend to experiment money tools, mix intuition with logic. They enjoy seeing progress as evolution. The blind spot with these ones there is restlessness. They are constantly reinventing without consolidating, without stacking up. So despite all that razzmatazz, they may still have nothing to show for it at the end of the day because they're not being methodical about the way that it's stuck. All right. Um, so they need frameworks, some sense of structure that honors both creativity and structure. Okay. I feel like this coat of many colors is very indicative of just all the many things that go there. Deborah, I'm going to go back real quick. Number 5 and 6 is architect and the escapist. The architect has control and pride. The escapists are the shopaholics of this world who ignore bills, overspends. YOLO, you only live once. I can't, this life, I can't come and kill myself kind of vibe. Just a baby girl or baby boy. Um, and we talked about how it's a self deception. We talked about how self-deception is disguised as Ankara. Abby, yeah, in my prompt in creating this avatar, I did, I did actually think about that. I used my quote that has many colors to create this. I don't know if you know that quote. The Yeah. And then number 8, we have the inheritor. These ones are nepo babies, okay? Um, the money in itself is not a problem. Just too much money in the bank at this point. Say it again. Was someone saying something? Okay. Too much money at this point. However, the core emotion here is pressure, 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 pressure and identity. Emotional root here is the tension between belonging and autonomy, belonging to perhaps the family, money, the family tree, everything that comes with the family, and just a sense of self when it comes to money. Trying to define self beyond inherited wealth or lack. All right. um their belief is that money defines expectations I didn't set. So there are set expectations from for them, from family, from friends, from extended family, from perhaps the family business, for instance. Their behavior is that their wealth is tied to family, to status, to legacy. They're either hyper compliant or super rebellious with finances. No, no, no. The idea of nepo baby. Okay, if you leave money for your kids, they be nepo babies. Yeah, that's the idea. But like, they don't have to have inheritors. Um, let's pay attention to the emotion that causes these things. It is the pressure, okay, and the tension between belonging and autonomy. You should definitely leave money for your kids, please. My own kids will be nepo babies. That's the whole point. Okay, that's why we are working this work. But also, we would also make sure that yeah, identity is not tied to that money. I guess that's the whole point of all of this. It is how certain psychological trauma as regards to money has formed the identity of money. Okay, and then the need here is autonomy, the right to define wealth on their own terms. Okay, so you then have people who have, um, if you then have people who are like either compliant or super rebellious. If they are compliant, they feel like they cannot have opinions of their own. If they're rebellious, they may have to, they may feel like they have to do something that is totally against the family's values, which may look like even being broke. Okay. The other day, I was watching the son of a former politician in Nigeria who said he left his house at 20 and then he does not have a dime of his father's money. He didn't take a dime of his father's money. I don't know if you guys have seen that video. And it was literally yabbing Nigerians, but it was talking about that as well. That was a rebellious one. That was one that decided to be rebellious about, you know, family wealth and all of that. And for whatever reason, he has his reason. That's just an example. Um, excuse me. The blind spot here is identity loss under inherited narratives around money. Typically, here with inheritors, what we are seeing is misaligned value systems with the child and the parents. Because if they're grounded in the same value, it really shouldn't be a problem. And then the last one is the monk. These guys, these are the holiest of the holy ones. A desire to transcend material concerns and find meaning beyond consumption, often a reaction to feeling controlled by or disappointed in material pursuits. Sometimes it is that they cannot, in the past, they've not been able to reach that, whatever it is that they wanted. So instead of just accepting that perhaps they need to save more money or make more money to get what they want, they allow themselves believe that getting or having anything material is not worth it in this life. And so they set their eyes on the things of heaven, which you should, because that's what the Bible says. But when it becomes a decoy, when it becomes a disguise for um not learning the principles of money, then you're just lying. It is some sort of self-deception. So the belief is that the less I need, the freer I am. This one is very close to the healer, the ones that feel like if I have too much, yeah, exactly. I feel like I've seen myself go through like two or three in different phases of life, and I know where I am today, which is why it's good to, you know what, Abby, don't make me get to my next point quickly. And then the behavior of this is that they live minimally, they resist accumulation, they take pride in frugality. It's like, you know, minimalist is good, but like, what is the emotion driving that? What is the intention driving that? Uncomfortable with wealth building. This one's usually uncomfortable with wealth building. They are not looking for their children to be nepo babies. So the blind spot here is spiritual bypass, disguised as enlightenment. All right. So this is all nine that I have, and I'm just gonna pause to say that the majority of people find themselves in one or two. Anybody who is still trying to find themselves, perhaps you missed the other slides. We don't have a lot of time to go through them again, but um, we can always go back to this video and see them. Did folks find themselves? Can you guys please give me a thumbs up or like message in the chat? Let me just know if you're interacting with this, if this resonates in any way at all. Linda, great, 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 great. Can I see more people, please? I just want to know how we're relating with this. Cool, 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 cool. Okay. Having said that, we'll have some more time to go through this in detail. The reason that's fine, that's fine, that's fine, that's very okay. The reason we are going through this, and I'll tell you, is before before we get to principles. The reason we're going through all of this is because when you go on the internet, when you go to the on the average, when we go outside or anywhere to seek knowledge for this, not because there's anything wrong with it, what you hear people say is, oh, do 50% of expenses, 30% of investment, I think is what they say, or savings, and then 20% of this. um I personally, when I was getting my graduate degree at Parsons in between the years of 2021 and 2023, two things that I spent a lot of time researching and doing capstone on was the issue of money, the design of money, actually, the design of money and finance in the society. And the second one was the attention economy. Um, but today we're just going to be focusing on that design of money. There's a reason, and I can only have this conversation here because just hear me out. There's a reason that there's a reason that when we every coach, every financial person is saying 50, 30, 20 is what you should do, not because there's anything wrong with that. It's the general thumb of rule of thumb, and it's just what is easy. It's just what is yeah. I mean, it's I would say this on Instagram as well, but it's not like anything out of place. um I'm just saying, when we generalize like that, when we say things like 50, 30, 20, it's a generalized rule of thumb, and it's great. It helps everybody to move. But we are like children of wisdom. What that means is that we look beyond the surface and we look deeper than what is being repeated, what is being echoed. Is like an echo chamber, yeah. What is being said, it is great, and everybody should do that if you can. Is a great starter, is a great place to start. Let me put that caveat there. But it's not the one that helps us build the kind of kingdom wealth that we're looking for. It is very, very important that you actually start to connect your relationship with money growing up with how you now relate with it, who you are today, and where you are headed tomorrow. Because that changes the entire strategy. That changes the way that you view, the way that you relate with money. That 50, 30, 20 thing, it's not gonna work. And the reason is this. The reason it's not going to work is this. An escapist, an escapist is already doing like maybe 90, 10, 0, or maybe like 85, 15, 0. Do you know what I'm saying? Because of the kind of psychological situation that is going up with them, right? When they hit a 50, 30, 20, there is a sense of satisfaction that they feel because in their mind, They have finally reached, what is expected and how you should actually be growing your money and all of that. But because of the years that you have already lost in all the monies that you have spent in the things that you should not be doing, let's add the layer of how old you are. We don't know how long it took you. We don't know how long you were in the escapist mode. If you were in the escapist mode for, I don't know, 50 years of your life, and you are going to live till 100, and that is me just even assuming. We don't know how these things are these days. But we're children of faith. We'll live long, is what the Bible has promised us. So that's what will happen. Yeah. Um, the remaining 50 years of your life, or whatever number of years that you probably have kids at that point. It's not where you're going to start doing 50, 30, 20. At that point, there's a level of aggression that is needed. So my point in all of this is that it's so easy to um, be okay. I've spoken with some business owners that, because again, the reason I'm saying business owners is because your personal finance as a business owner affects the way that you actually treat the finances of your company as well, especially if you're a small business or a solopreneur, right? And when you talk to them and chat to them about, oh, so tell me about this, why your finance, why you're still missing business with this, and they'll tell you things like, but my savings are, I'm doing the 50-30 rule thing and everything is fine. I don't like the way that 50-30 rule, 50-30-20 rule has been made, like what it's supposed to be, how it should be, is is alarming. And my counterpoint to that is that find out where you are, find out what you are, and then almost start to do the reverse of that, dependent on how old you are, what you're trying to build. Some people, not everybody is trying to build wealth. I don't think everybody, if you're on this call, it feels to me like you're interested in wealth building, it feels to me like you're interested in money and finances, and so you want to know what it is, okay? So when you start to find out what your emotional roots, what your belief is, that begins to affect the way that your ratio turns around versus who you are today. That's if you're even doing anything. Do you guys see what I'm saying? So what I am saying is please do not be stuck on 50-30-20. It is a general rule of thumb. It is what everybody would say. It is what is it's just an echo chamber. When we go really deeper into that, it is also a design. I usually tell people that economies are designed. The way that the world is today is designed. And those that break out of that mode are those that go outside of that design. If that makes sense, you have to step back and ask, why are we kept in that mode? Why does your expenses have to be this? There is a mode, there is a theory that is being repeated, is a design, is a way that the world is being looked at. And I challenge everyone on the call to, if you choose to not do that, if you choose to step away from that for a bit, what happens? How does that change the way that your finance or your money is growing? Okay. Um, I'll pause there and just move on to the principles of it. When I started, I said that stewardship is the entire spirit of finance. And inside stewardship is where you have diligence, you have care, you have trust, and you have integrity. All of that wrapped together is what stewardship is. So let's kind of like run through the principles of it. Okay. Now that some of us have been able to find ourselves in any of this, hopefully we're able to um let's run through just all of these principles, guys. Um I have my phone because I want to open my Bible. We're going to Matthew 25. We're going to read the story of the servant and the talents. 25 verse 14. Okay. It says that again, Evan's kingdom is like a wealthy man who went on a long journey and summoned all his trusted servants and assigned his financial management over to them. This is TPT version. And verse 15 says, before he left on his journey, he entrusted a bag of 5,000 gold coins to one of his servants, to another a bag of 2,000 gold coins, and to the third a bag of 1,000 gold coins, each according to his ability to manage the one entrusted with 5,000 gold coins immediately went out and traded with the money, and he doubled his investment. In the same way, the one who has entrusted with 2,000 gold coins traded with a sum and likewise doubled his investment. 18 says that, but the one who had been entrusted with 1,000 coins dug a hole in the ground and buried his master's money. After much time had passed, the master returned to settle account with his servants. The one who was entrusted five came with 10, and it says he have doubled. Then he was commended, and then it says, because you've been a faithful steward to manage a small sum, now I will put you in charge of much, much more. You will experience the delight of your master, who will say to you, enter into the joy of the Lord. Then the one who had been entrusted with 2,000, we know how the story goes, brought his own 4,000, and the one with the 1,000, verse 24 says, and the one who had been entrusted with 1,000 gold coins came to his master and said, look, sir, I know you're a hard man to please, and you're a shrewd and ruthless businessman who grows rich on the backs of others. I was afraid of you, so I went and hid money and buried it in the ground. But here it is, take it, it's yours. But his master said to him, you are an untrustworthy and lazy servant. If you knew I was shrewd and ruthless, who always makes a profit, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? Then I would have received it all with interest. We know the story, but I wanted to kind of just read that story word for word um to point out a few things. Okay. The first one is that clearly, well, here's my understanding of these talents, because when it comes with money, the first thing, and as we know, and as the Bible just always says to us, everything we need is within us. Everything we need is embedded into, is being given. Like the moment that the Lord breathed his breath into us, we had everything that we needed to survive and thrive in this world, including all the monies that we need. So I usually say that the first inclination, the first evidence of that is the talent that we have. There are some people that right from the I was in DC a couple weeks back, and one of the children that was around had painted this Pokemon character, I believe, and I just knew it. I don't think that boy is up to 10 years old yet. I just knew that this was someone that was, or that it's clear that he's already like gifted in the things of like art and all these things, without, by virtue of perhaps the generations and genealogy that will come from, and the genes and all of that, and just things. There are people, there is there's something that has been put inside everybody, no matter what, how useless we think it is. Like there is something, there is a seed, and what we can call talent. I feel like that's the first thing to nurture when it comes to fight to money, to something that we can use in exchange for money. The Bible says that it's our gifts that would open up ways for us in front of kings. So when it comes to trading of money and talent, that talent is the first thing that we have. And it is our duty as human beings to nurture that talent, because if we don't nurture the talent, then like there'll literally be nothing with which, well, not nothing, but is the first is the first card that allows us to be able to exchange what we have for anything that we need, and in this case money precisely. Okay. um so there is that, and I feel like that's the first thing to actually know. This I think I missed this. Okay, no, actually, sorry, I missed the slides. This one should come first. Okay, but that's fine. We'll come back to the other slide. This first thing I really wanted to say is how the first principle is that God is the source of everything. And I think that changes, that ties back to the archetypes that I was talking about initially in the beginning of the conversation. If we understand, during our ITC prayer this morning, somebody prayed a very powerful prayer that the day you understand salvation is the day that you become saved. The day you understand anything is the day that that thing stops becoming an obstacle for you. He also went ahead to say that. Um, he also went ahead to say that the day that the Bible says that in all the getting, get understanding, because it's the primary thing, right? God is the first, if we understand that God is the source, which is the first principle of everything, money, anything in this world, that changes everything. And I have like, okay, Ayoko is texting me. I think I'm running out of time. 1 second. Okay. Proverbs also says that I lead in the way of righteousness in the midst of the path of judgment, that I may cause those that love me to. Basically, God is the source, is what he's saying. Um, I also wanted to. Here is when we start to now kind of like trickle down to the practicality of it. That everyday money thing that we're saying. Now that we have settled the psychological aspect, we have now come. We kind of are reminded, because it's not that we do not know. We kind of are reminded that God is the source. Um, when we are reminded of that and that comes into our being, the first thing that we should then be thinking about is order out of chaos. And I'm using this as a metaphor. I really love metaphors because I feel like metaphors communicate a lot of things that you don't have words for. One of the first things that God did, um, when he was creating the earth, is to create order, rhythm, boundaries from formlessness. And in the case of finance, I relate that with organizing a budget, separating priorities, and spending boundaries and setting boundaries for spending and saving. In terms of organizing a budget, that looks like every month, how much will I be spending on food? How much will I be spending on clothing? Do I want to buy clothes every month? Do I want to not buy clothes every month? Should we do quarterly? The idea of planning that, of putting that together month on month. Some people go as granular, excuse me, some people go as granular as week on week because they don't want to mix it up, is what budgeting is. And honestly, I think that budgeting is one of the smartest and the first foundation of bringing order to your everyday money. You don't want to, if you, I've done it before. In fact, I've done it many times where you just go ahead in the course of the month and just, vibe. When you vibe like that, you can keep putting money into your savings or into your, and budgeting looks like, some people use Express sheets, some people spreadsheets, some people use Notion, some people use apps, but I use Excel sheet all the time because I'm just an Excel sheet native, I guess, and I'm just used to it. So you want to keep putting like those numbers inside. What does a budget look like? It looks like, I should have brought a sample. I forgot to bring a sample for you guys. But really, but I have one that I can share with the team at the end of this. That looks like aligning your money with your values and with your goals. One of the reasons, again, that we went through all that psychological conversation is because we are trying to find out what your values are. If your values are not aligned with what your values should be, then there's a need for a change of values. That is why I was saying that financial order is at the heart of your identity. If you do not, if your identity is not solidly aligned with God or what it should be, and by what it should be, I mean with what God calls you, then there is a dissonance. When there is a dissonance, you begin to spend out of value. And that is why that sadness you feel when it's not just that you don't have money in the account. See, if you, even if you don't have money in your account and you know that you have spent your money on the right things, like maybe you have invested in a business, you have done this, and your money, your bank account is zero, you will still be happy. That guilt that you feel, that's the ability for money to be so powerful that it sucks joy out of us, is because there's a misalignment with what we do with our money, if that makes sense. There is a place when the bank account is empty because there is no money. But if there was money there before and if that money has been spent in a way that is not aligned with your values, there is a dissonance, is what we call, I'm going to be careful with this one, but that dissonance, when it compounds, is capable of throwing us into a different level of darkness. Then looks like, we just can't step out to bath, we can't step out to drink water, we don't want to see, like, there's so much that happens with that. That's why some people tell you that money is a spirit. Money is, because of how spiritual it really gets. I'm going to really move fast because I'm out of time. Um, so yeah, order out of chaos. This is where you just get that budget, and it's very, very, very important. The story of trust. knowing that God gives enough. And I think the story of manna in the wilderness, which is what Exodus 16 is one of the biggest story of trust for me as a person. No need to hoard, like resisting the anxiety about tomorrow. The Bible says not to be anxious for anything, but to ask for all that we need through prayer. And then learning enoughness, learning what we call contentment. That is one of the biggest things that we can do, because growth, financial growth and contentment are positively correlated. What that means is that the more contented you are, the more you have the tendency to grow your money. And it's not just going to show in the way that you budget, it shows in the way that if you're a trader, if you buy options, or you trade, or or stocks. Let's not even go options route. If the stocks that you buy, the ability to know when to stop, which is why in the finance space they will introduce things like dollar averaging, where you're not buying more than a particular amount, regardless of how rich you are or how well the stock is doing well. All those things, you have to set boundaries for contentment. But we as children of God already know that as a basic kingdom value. And so even in the way that we invest, in the way that we budget, in the way that we spend, these things will definitely show up. Okay. um Let me go back to the other slide. Then there's a place for wisdom, diligence, and order. This is where stewardship starts to take form as well. Finance requires a lot of attention, almost the way that everything else in our lives, even if it's your skincare, if it is your style as a person, whatever you're doing, there's a level of attention you need to give to it to survive or to thrive. So there's a level of diligence, following your budgeting, following your plans, making sure that what you're spending money on is aligned with who you want to be, not the archetype that you are today. Okay, is part of the diligence that you want to put in place. You want to keep doing that. You want to keep researching. One of the things that I find, excuse me, one of the reasons that I've heard people say, I don't want to invest in stock. I don't want to invest in anything that I do not understand. Yes, I know that finance and the finance world has a way of making things look like it is exclusive, and so certain people cannot understand it. But like, there's a level of diligence and research that also has to be given to it in order for you to understand it. Because your excuse, or our excuse, because it's not just you, it's all of us, our excuses cannot be our excuses cannot be I don't understand it. We have to strive to understand it, because otherwise it makes the entire difference between the ones that get ahead and the ones that do not get ahead. And we are the generation of those that get ahead. It is our birthright to be ahead. The Bible says that we shall be the first and not the last. That's what the Bible says, okay? And then there's a part about building the temple. So this build the temple is, what are the temple here, and the chapter was talking about when David was building the temple, when Solomon was building the temple, and all the precision and all those things. So what are like the long-term project goals that we're building? Some of us want to have, like, I don't know, vacation homes in Portugal, or you want to have like vacation homes in Mexico. I don't know. You want to sponsor kingdom projects. You want to be donating $50 million to kingdom related projects every year. Whatever our goals are, and they're very valid. What are those temples? But what are you doing today to intentionally build towards them? Do you have like a savings account somewhere? Do you have like a brokerage account somewhere that what are you doing today? The the marbles, the stones, the sand, the granite, the sand, the nails, all those things are the little things that all come together to build the temple. What are you doing today to put that together? Okay. We have an activity here, but I don't think we have enough time. So I want to kind of like now go to like the actual everyday, and I try to pull this across UK, US, Nigeria, and Canada, because I feel like those are our main countries here. These are like the broad asset classes. There's a lot more if you go all the way down, but like broadly, this is what it looks like. Cash and cash equivalents are the smallest or the lowest form, because those looks like savings. They are easily turned into liquid. You have T-bills, you have like money market funds, usually short term, low risk. Then you have like bonds and fixed income, government and corporate bonds. So when you think about the temples that I just described, these long ones and the medium ones are the ones that kind of add up to that. Alternative assets. A friend sent me a voice note a couple days ago, and she's like, "I have this 20,000 sitting somewhere, and I don't want to use that money until I'm like 65. I'm supposed to be using that in my retired, my just like my retirement savings. What are your thoughts about what that money could be used for?" Now, that is somebody that's actually building towards like their retirement, because this person is probably what in their late 20s or mid 30s. I don't know. Well, 30s actually, I know. Um, and they're planning for 35 years' time or 30 plus years' time. That is how to think about it. And honestly, you don't need 20,000 to start it. You don't need, like, if it, no matter how small, and I know that we usually think we need a lot to start. No, you don't. Because in these days and time, there are apps that help us to do like fractions of this, fractions of that. I would be very, I'm personally very a little bit about cryptocurrencies, but the truth is that we've seen that it's a currency, it's a coin or some type of currency that actually moves with politics, and it depends on just the way that the um, it depends on the way that the consumers their sentiments about it. I'll be very careful about those, but there are so many tangible value-based investments and options that you have. There's like alternative asset, there's hedge, there's government savings product, there's also the idea of investing in startups and businesses and private deals. These days there are deals that for companies that are pre-IPO, so those companies are going to IPO. To IPO means to go into the market and be a public facing company that you can like trade with on what Nigerian Stock Exchange, London Stock Exchange, New York Stock Exchange, okay? And then there's commodities like gold, oil, all of these are the options that we have. The next question in your head is like, where can I get it? How do I know where to find it? I know that definitely in Nigeria, bonds, fixed income, stock equities, you can trade on Bamboo. I think Bamboo is the only one that I know. I think there's Chaka, but I'm not sure about that. But there's Bamboo. Um, Cash and cash equivalent, I'm not a huge fan. I think that is the lowest return. Is not something you should put your money on. If you're putting your money in savings and T-bills and MMFs, it's the lowest that you can get, and you can do a lot better than that. Mutual funds and ETFs are usually the safest for someone that is just starting and is not sure, right? So you can go short, you can go medium, you can go long, and there are like different like instruments there that you can actually use. Then there's real estate and rates. Um, Real estate is there's so many options with real estate. Some people, the smallest form of real estate is Airbnbs, okay, and then you can go as far as getting your own units. You can go as a group, you can go as an individual if you can like afford it. There's just so many options. I think what I'm trying to say is just show us how these options are. Out. There's many, a lot more than this, but like the first question is, or the first thing you need to know is that there are options. And then the next question is, where do I find them? Depending on where you are, it differs. Okay. I can provide a lot more information about where to find them for specific countries if we need. I'm sure we need that, but I can provide them to our opinion. We can give it to the group. But you should know that there are options, and a quick Google check would even tell you where to find each of these ones wherever you are. I wanted to pay some attention to country specific things that we should be paying attention to as well, like your 401k in the US, your IRA, your taxable brokerage. Those notes, those caveats and specifics are things that you should be paying attention to. For the UK folks, your buy to let, your SIP, like just the way that it applies to you, you cannot go into it blindsided as well as Canada and Nigeria. Fintech apps, I think, are our best bet. I think there's a lot of them in Nigeria. Think about it, withholding tax. There's a tax regulation change and swap that has happened in Nigeria. Pay attention to what those are, and that would affect what you're doing. If this looks like a lot, because it can be a lot. Um, there are people that have like synthesized information that you can consume. Or worst case, there's ChatGPT that you can throw in documents that have been prepared by the government already for instance, a tax regulation bit, and say, tell it to trickle it down to you in 10 points as it relates to this and that. Easily, we get that done. Um, Something else I wanted to talk about is on the business side, and I'm going to wrap up because I know that I'm running out of time for um I'm running out of time for okay, I have an activation here. I'm running out of time for Ayakule. Something else I want to talk about is on the business fund. Um, I do believe, and I've seen it happen, and I have read a lot of research papers around it as well, how personal finance trickles down to business finance, especially if you're not appointing a financial person to handle your business. And I know that there's a lot of small business owners in TRS. As a business owner, there are a number of things that we need to be paying attention to. The one thing, there are many things, but one thing I want to talk about is the unit economics of your business. That's probably one of the most important metrics that you be paying attention to. What does unit economics mean? It really means that what does it mean to sell one thing, what your product or service that you're providing? What does it mean? How much is it to sell it? How much is it to acquire a customer? How long does it take for you to get back the capital that you have invested in servicing or producing one product? That is like um, how long customer acquisition cost is how long it takes for you to acquire and how much it takes for you to acquire a customer, right? And then what value does one customer bring and for how long? Because those things tell you two things. It tells you if the cost of acquiring that customer is worth the revenue that they bring to your business. If the cost of acquiring the customer is consistently higher than the revenue, or the marginal, now I'm speaking finance, but let me break it down. If the amount it takes to add on a customer per time is consistently high and is not reducing versus the revenue, then there's a problem. Okay. The concept of unit economics is that if you sold only one product or provided only one service to one customer, is it worth your time? And every time it costs more to acquire one customer and to service them, it means technically that your business is not scalable. If that's the case, then we need to revisit why. Is your business model strong enough? Your business model is what your value proposition is as a business, what you say that you're offering and how you're offering it. Okay. So I guess we could spend hours here, honestly, but it was very important to me that I spoke to the psychological side because it's the beginning and end of everything. When we figure out the psychological side, the practical side becomes easy because that is just looking for information and we can find information thanks to all the AI tools that we have now. We can synthesize. We know exactly what we are dealing with and then we can break it down. I have materials that I can recommend that I'm going to share with Ayokole as well. Um, and we can just take it from there. So I'll shut up now and then let you guys ask questions.
Thank you so much, Chrissy. I think it's like you said in the last, I think a few minutes ago, it's a whole lot, and not just a whole lot of useful stuffs. So it's also important to just, because I think questions can be quite targeted. So we'll open up the floor for questions now. Yeah, questions?
Hi, Chrissy. Thank you so much for this. I guess my question is like, so if you find yourself in one of the archetypes that are not the greatest, right? How do you do that work to switch to one that is more rewarding, more stable, and that helps you get into that kingdom building mindset? So basically, like, how do we get from where we are to where we should be?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Joanne. I think the closest to the ideal archetype is the alchemist, okay? But we can be restful. We can be very restful. But to answer your question moderately, the way to move from, one that you're not comfortable with to one that you're comfortable with is, there are two things. There are three things. Actually, all of these points is what you need to pay attention to, but especially the emotional root. Okay. Um, let's use the inheritor for example. For the inheritor, there's a tension between belonging and autonomy, trying to define self beyond inherited wealth or lack, which is not a problem, except that you find that they their wealth is tied to family status or legacy, and so there is a belief that they are defined by expectation. So the way to kind of like rework that is to find the fear that is sponsoring that personality, or that is sponsoring that emotion, or the core emotion is what I'm looking for. There's usually a form of fear that is hidden somewhere. When we can find out what that fear is, when we can see where it started from, it could be. I'll tell you an example, and I kind of mentioned it when I started. One of the things that I noticed growing up, I was a very emotionally attuned child, is that when my parents were not buoyant, or when they didn't need money, when they didn't have money and they needed money for something, the house was tense. Me, I would know that something was going on, because everybody would just, my mom and my dad would just be like, what happened? And so I caught myself, I started catching myself feeling every time I didn't have money, I would just be, it was like I didn't have the right to be happy. It's like I don't have, there's no money in my account, so I don't have the right to be okay. I don't have the right to be smiling. If everybody is okay, I should not be okay. But that's not what God says. I guess the way to transform it is to confront that lie with the truth of the Bible. So the Bible already says that everything I need, I will get. So if I know that I'm going to get everything that I need, will I be sad? In fact, one of the ways that God kept on helping me to do that, or to kind of change that, is I remember in 2022 was when 2021 was when it happened. I just moved to the US, and I'm like, God, I cannot, you have to, this, I was just doing things. And I remember precisely where I was that day. I was by the kitchen cabinet, and I heard the Spirit of the Lord very, very clearly. I was wanting to eat. I was not trying to mince the food, I was trying to eat. And the Lord said to me, He said, you're never going to lack anything. So you better eat the way that you eat. There's no time ever that you lack anything. And for every time that I felt the need to be sad because of not having money, of this and that, I remind myself of that promise in those words. I would not even quote Bible, just because I heard that. And that would ease me out. That would make me feel better. And honestly, God came through in mighty ways. One of the ways that He came through for me in that period of time, I remember that somebody that I met like 2017 or 2018 in Equatorial Guinea just calls me and says, "Oh, he's building this company, this and that and that and that." And he knows that he heard how I was saying that I want to be this, I want to be that when we were having that conference. That can I come and do some consulting for him? I'm like, please, sir, I'm very ready. And that was just how God came through in that period, especially in a way that was really huge, actually. And just even in other times, I keep till now, I still keep replaying that in my head, and that kind of just helps me. Um, Summarily, just replacing the word, the truth of the word of God with replace the lie with the truth of the word of God is one of the ways to, once that belief is swapped, that identity also changes. I
Uh,
don't know if that helps.
Thank you. Thank you, Chrissy. Abisola, your hands up.
Yeah, I think my question was similar to the previous one, but I feel like what you just said actually helped me answer it, because I was going to say, so which one is now the kingdom one? But what I also heard in your answer was that it actually, the truth of this conversation is for us to be really honest with where we are, and because you've identified the emotional roots, you've done a lot of the homework for us, you've
Yes.
identified the need, so that means that where we need healing is also clear.
so we can have an honest conversation with God about, okay, if I'm an inheritor and I'm struggling and I have this identity loss under either I've inherited, this lack mindset or a mindset that feels like I'm pressured under the weight of something, I can give that weight to God. I can substitute that lack mindset for an abundance. So I know how to engage. It's no longer like an enigma of something to deal with. And then once that part is healed, as an inheritor, I can walk as a royal that is well balanced. Same thing with even the alchemists. That restlessness can be like confusing and just throwing you all over the place. But if you can ask God to give you, then you now know that what you're asking God for is to give you rest.
Yes.
To give you peace in your finances. And so when you become that alchemist that now has peace, that now has the frameworks, and is truly able to just not just believe that you can transform your story, but actually do it, then you are. So that means that we might not all be identical in terms of where we land as a from in terms of when our financial stories are healed, but we now have that just the truth is clear, and we've healed from the downsides of whatever those personas might be bringing. So this is really amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Helping me put that together.
Yeah, thanks, Abisa. I'm just going to put out a question that I believe will potentially help a number of us. So just listening, I've been thinking about the fact that there are enough people that get financially stranded, and I'm using that word carefully because it happens to poor people, it happens to rich people. So what I mean by being stranded is just getting fairly regularly into situations where as a person, you're not able to take care of what you consider a financial need or a want, and that will happen to everybody across demographics. So just having listened to all of this, let's imagine that there's someone on the call and there's probably more than one that qualifies for what I've just described. What would you recommend as next steps? What are the clear things they have to go do over the next few days, few months, to deal with this? Yeah. So I don't know if my question is clear.
I think it's clear, and I'll repeat what I believe I heard you say is that there are people who have gotten financially stranded, and that's not because of whether they didn't have money or not. That happens to whether you were wealthy or poor, or broke. I think broke is the word, or broke. And it is that for such people, what are the immediate next steps of how they can get out of that and not return to that cycle again? Did I understand that correctly?
Yes. And just tying that back to the bringing order, into everyday money. Yes.
Exactly, because I was just going to say that typically people who find themselves financially stranded, and I like the way you use that word because if they're stranded, it means they were coming from somewhere. It is usually lack of structure. It is usually that it's two things. Now that I say that, I'm like, well, it is usually lack of structure. One, it is knowing that at every time you earn any money, um, this amount goes into savings. This amount goes into like this long term savings. This amount goes into that. And I want to give a very good example because, like I said, it's either rich or poor. I read Femi Otedola's Big Money, and in that book, he had said that he started a company, the oil company, I think, and the first oil company, and it literally went all the way down. And when I read through that, the reason that happened, in fact, this is a very great example. The reason that happened is because it became, I won't use the word reckless, but it became very bullish. To be bullish is to be overly enthusiastic about something, about um, the investments that he made, instead of having a structure to say, if I'm investing 90% of my money, 10% diversification is the word I'm looking for. 10% goes into stock, 20% goes into commercial papers, 15% goes into money mutual funds, this and that goes into that. What he did is he put all of his money um into stocks that belonged to his friend, and he had borrowed a lot of money. It borrowed a lot of money at the back of the business that he was doing. So if he had stuck to a structure to say that I'm not going to put my money in one basket, because one of the biggest thing about finance and financial management is the concept of risk and return. You have to be able to match your risk with return, and in managing risk, there has to be a lot of diversification. And diversification means not putting your head in one basket, as whether it's starter investment or even what, no matter how advanced you are, there's got to be a level of diversification that you have to have across your portfolio, so that if something was wrong with a particular stock or investment type, at least a percentage that you put in another investment type will be safe. Okay, so what you don't want to do is that you don't want to go against a structure that you've put in place, and if you have not put one in place, you want to put one in place that you're going to follow religiously and with discipline. I don't know if that answers your question.
Thank you, Chrissy. We just ask if there are any questions. I think we can take one more. We want to close at 11:30. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
So just off the back of what she just said, as an entrepreneur, how does that apply? So you have entrepreneurs sometimes that take all their savings and put it in their business. What do you advise in this context?
I want to say the entrepreneurs are a different breed. They are a very interesting breed. And the reason this is an interesting one to answer is because I know that I have done something like that before, even as a person. Generally, entrepreneurs taking all their savings and putting into an investment is not something that you would ever hear a financially inclined person say. If like someone who's talking about money or providing advisory, that's not what you never hear them say. But I have to say, in the context of where we're speaking, and just the truth about the entrepreneurial spirit, that has to go on a personal conviction basis. The idea of taking all of your investment and putting it in, in an investment or something, it has to go on a very, like, that has to be a personal conviction within the tenets of financial advisory or money or something. It is totally recommended never to take all your savings and put it in one thing. Diversification is always going to be the answer. But if that's something that you have to do, it has to be purely on a personal conviction basis, as opposed to like from a general financial advisory standpoint. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Mhm. Yeah, and I can add two things. And I think Chrissy sort of answered it perfectly. But I think two things to note is, I think as an entrepreneur, it will be, if you don't have a lot of money, it's probably more okay to put all of your money in your business. But the more money you have, the less you should behave like that typical entrepreneur. And I'll just make it practical. So all you've got is $1 million or something. Then yeah, you can throw it all in into your business, because like if you lose the entire 1 million anyway, it's not like it's the end of the world. But if you have $1 billion or 10 billion, you shouldn't throw the entire 10 billion into your idea. And the second point that I think is important as well is, even when you do decide to throw it in against financial advice, you then need, as soon as the business is thriving, you then need a plan to now begin to walk it back, to set those money aside away from the business. Part of where people sort of run into pain is you actually put all of your money. It's 5 million naira. You put it in the business. It actually becomes 20 million. Then you put the 20 million in there again. It becomes 40 million. Then one day, the 40 million just goes to zero. But you should have, yes, you've gone headlong in on day one, but as it started to grow, that's the time to start to walk some of the money back and resume, the sound advice of diversification, and just let your business ride just slightly slower than you probably want. Yeah. So those are the two things I would add. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayo. It's very instructive.
Okay. So I'll just turn this over back to Chrissy. I think Chrissy's got something else for us. Yeah.
Yes. So so the idea of what to do, how to do, what to invest in. Like I said before, like when I was in grad school, I did a lot of work around um just researching. Honestly, it was just curiosity because I'm always very curious about, I think I started having that curiosity about why are some people poor and some people rich from like when I was like 5 or 6 or so. I don't even remember. And so I had the opportunity to do like that full blown research. And recently, myself and a couple friends, um, a data scientist, some other finance people, had been kind of putting like that idea together of how can we help people actually make the choice of where to put their money, not tell them what to do, but like how do they find the intelligence of where to put their money, and we kind of came up with, we started working on something that I think I want to share with you guys. I told them to do like a page on my website where I can share with you guys. This was actually done for you guys so that you can have a sense. I put a link in the group. You can click on it if that looks like something that interests people. um like feel free to go on there and just like sign up and put your email there. it's totally it's totally like, your choice. Not, there's no, I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to, but I think that this is something that a lot of work has gone and is going to go into, because the intelligence behind choosing how to invest, where to invest. The idea of money is something that like the people that are working on this are very, very passionate about. And I think that a lot of people would benefit greatly from it because of all the intelligence that comes with it and just all the people that are working on it. So I just want to encourage everyone um, to take a moment to look at that, because I think it'll be very, 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 very helpful. This is what it looks like if you can see my screen. And it just talks about the idea of like building wealth journeys and building wealth from the ground up, especially if you didn't have the privilege of, knowing what it means to build wealth. The idea of the real wealth barriers, intelligence and legacy, personalized intelligence briefs, just things that help you to think about money. Um, and there are a lot of things that would help you, that we're looking for like the first 1000 restorers. You have like 3 months free early beta access in 2026, and just a number of things that will be very helpful. Please claim your spot and then put in like a couple questions, answers, about 4 or 5 of them, very quick. um what if you're over 50? um because of the stage that this is, and because it's like just the beginning stages, I think that that age range is defined so that a particular value can be captured. So we may not be able to cater to over 50, but since we have a second one, that's probably something to bring up to the team. I'll come back to you, Mrs. Kilani and Mrs. Braithwaite. Is that okay? That's all I got.
Thank you so much, Chrissy. I think it's been quite enlightening, and I think for most of us, it's like you've lit something in our hearts and in our brains. So, and I just encourage everyone to take to take the lessons today and introspect and ask questions and get information. Uh, and 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 if there's something we need to do as a community, as a follow-up, it would be good for us to get that feedback. It's really extremely important that we manage our finances quite well. Yeah, so thank you everyone. Thanks for spending your Saturday morning with us. We really appreciate that. Bye,
Thank
and have an amazing day.
Thank you, Chrissy.